Good afternoon, and thanks to the organizers for this opportunity. We feel very honored to be part of this event. Last night I was invited to have an inauguration speech at the local carnival community in my village, and this morning I was at the brewery to do the same, and I'm trying very hard not to mix things during the coming 20 minutes. Here we go. So, Fundes was born in 1984 by Stefan Schmidheiny, a very successful Swiss businessman and one of its biggest philanthropists. Stefan had the idea that to tackle the biggest issue in Latin America, which still is the gap between the rich and the poor, could only be tackled using business sense. And his idea was to strengthen micro and small businesses throughout Latin America, and that way create a bigger middle class on the continent. So initially we were a microfinance organization for about 10 years, with the strong belief that what was most needed was access to capital, until 10 years later we felt very strongly that capital, yes, was very important, but if there is a sequence between access to knowledge and access to capital, that knowledge should come first. Also with the idea to reduce the risk of the capital, which eventually was allocated as well. So until about 2007, 2008, we were kind of a consulting company or a micro credit company for micro and small businesses. I should say here that we mainly deal with micro businesses. I'm talking about mom and pop shops where the mother with a daughter and maybe a sister runs a small shop, or a farmer has a couple of acres with banana. That kind of beneficiaries are the ones that we most closely work with. In 2008 came a new challenge, and a very, very big one. The founder informed us that starting 2010 we would have 5 years to transform this purely philanthropic organization, getting something between $10 and $12 million a year, into a self-sustaining, financially self-supporting organization. And I must make a point here, it was 2008 when first mortgage, then finance, and then economic crisis really hit hard in the US, and whatever hits hard in the US, some couple of years later comes equally strong or even stronger to Latin America. So to go and look for other philanthropists, as it was suggested by our founder, we went to see the Gates, and we went to see all the big philanthropists. We went to see Tim as well in Geneva, and it was to no avail, because it was 2008. It was just not a very good time to look for another philanthropic business model. And more we came to the very strong conclusion that the only way to get out of that was working with the private market. We took a huge bet at that time, and we insisted, and still do, that what is now called corporate social responsibility versus core business of any large corporation, which today still very often are completely separate units, will eventually come closer and closer and will eventually merge. It is our bet that 5 years from now there will be no more corporate social responsibility. Even some foundations of large corporations will not exist anymore, because the core business of those companies will assume responsibilities that are not now in those conscious laundry units as we used to have it. I worked for 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry. I sort of know what I'm talking about. So that bet that we took, that corporate social responsibility and core business would eventually merge in order to do the core business in a more purposeful and more meaningful and more responsible way, was then our guiding star to the new model, which is a model of value chain projects, and we now give micro and small businesses access to market, we call it. So we move from what we call Fundes 1.0, access to capital, to Fundes 2.0, which we call access to knowledge. Now we are with Fundes 3.0, which is access to markets, which is also obviously very much needed. There is this saying in English that don't give them fish, teach them how to fish. And what about if you have a lot of fish and you can't sell them? So access to market for us became the guiding principle. At the same time, we had to change the organization, as I said, to a self-sustaining, to a profit-making organization. So we became profit-oriented, but still very, very mission-driven. Please take my word for it, there is nothing wrong with profit. There might be something wrong the way you make it, and there might be something wrong the way you spend it, but profit gives you a tranquility, gives you a security, lets you grow, lets you go to new markets, and lets you, amongst other things, pay your people. So profit-oriented and mission-driven is what we are since 2008. And the ink of that business model, where we joined thousands of small corporations, small organizations with what we call the anchor companies, and use those micro and small businesses in their procurement, in their supply system, or use the same micro and small businesses in their distribution system. And talking to the anchor companies, which became our customers, the ink of that business model was really not yet dry when we were confronted with a new challenge, when companies started to tell us, look, obviously we still need those micro and small businesses in our procurement and in our distribution, but we cannot spend $1,000 anymore per farm or per scrap metal collector or per hardware store. We will have to reduce that to half or even less. And in 2017, we were confronted with a whole number of huge, large customers, which were very important to us. They said that it's not anymore $1,000, it's probably $300 now. And that's when I became really scared, because there was a high risk that we would become a consulting company for large corporations to make them more profitable and sort of move away from our mission, which is the sustainable development and successful development of micro and small businesses in Latin America. And at that time, I really transformed my job from CEO to kind of a protector, and I insisted very, very much that we would not move an inch away from our mission, and that whatever it would take, we would always try to stick to that original thought of our founder. And we quickly realized that doing more of the same was not going to do the trick, because it was all face-to-face consulting with small farmers, with those scrap metal collectors, and we realized very quickly that face-to-face consulting was too expensive. And now we are on the move since December, a couple of months now, on the move from a face-to-face consulting company to a totally digital organization, using all the tools and tricks that modern technology allows us to use, also with those micro and small businesses in Latin America. We feel that in the coming years, our income stream will move from an income stream which comes now mainly from large corporations which pay us for the value chain projects with procurement and distribution. The income stream will soon be from data, which we collect from those micro and small businesses and sell them to the large corporations who need that information for their business decisions. So data will become the number one income stream for Fundes. Memberships from the micro and small businesses, maybe $5 a month, in order to get networking possibilities and opportunities between themselves, will be another income stream stream, and the third one, but the smallest one, is the only income stream which we have now, which is the consulting services to the large corporations to make value chains more efficient. This much about where we come from, where we are now, and where we believe that things will move in the next 2 to 3 years. Now, the next topic is partnerships. Already in the second model, which is the access to the market, we felt very strongly that we couldn't do it alone any longer, that we needed support from people that knew more about many things that are necessary in the value chain, and we started to create partnerships with dozens of large corporations and eventually made them not only customers but actually partners in our common goals. And sorry, I'm moving back. And so we decided that we had to sort of structure that idea on strategic partnerships. We had a task force that was fully dedicated to the idea of partnerships within Fundes. Visualize an organization that has its head office in Costa Rica and has 13 country offices across Latin America. We have about 250 people working for us, plus about 500 consultants that work in the countries as freelancers, and we contract them on a contract-by-contract basis. So on these three subjects, we felt at the end of that task force work that we had during about 6 months that we needed support and we needed partners. The first one is funding, and not only for projects, but we decided also to open our equity for possible equity investors, but we are not looking for what we call stupid money. What we want is people that complement our model, that bring knowledge, bring technology, bring know-how, which make us stronger. On the funding side still, sponsoring partners is the third category there. Then on the know-how axis, there we are looking for technology partners. We really, really need them. And what frightens us a bit is that the partners that we bring in now move closer and closer to our core competence, which is the strengthening of micro and small businesses. And that is exactly something that we had to accept over time, that the partnerships which you used to have or cooperation agreements that we used to have were quite far away from our core business, because we felt very strongly that the core business should stay with us. Now we have partnerships and cooperation agreements with people that are completely in our core business. The data, for instance, which we collect now, is not in our premises anymore. Without that data, we would be lost. The tools, the apps that we use, all the modern technology tools which we use are not in our hands anymore. They are with our partners. So initially, it was really scary to see how these partnerships involved things that we would have never given out of our hand only 5-6 years ago. And it became a necessity really to build that kind of trust in order to have those kinds of partnerships. On the branding side, we felt that it was really very, very necessary that more people should know about what we do and how we do it, get the word out. This is also the reason why I'm teaching now in a few universities here in Europe, because I want to motivate young people to think along those lines that I have mentioned at the beginning. The criteria for the selection of our partners were these 6. Actually 5. The last one is then the ranking. What value do these partners bring to us? What value does Fundus bring to those partners, which then gives you an indication on the kind of negotiation power or balance that you have in the process. The conditions for the partnership, then the feasibility for the partnership. One of our dream partners would be Google. but Google sees us like dandruff on their shoulders, at least for the time being. So we also have to make a feasibility check to see and find out and decide what's possible, what's feasible for us. Then risks, the time axis, we really have to hurry, because especially in the Fundus 4.0, in the technology Fundus, it'll be the winner takes it all. So if we can't win that race and become the partner in the digital help for micro and small businesses in Latin America, someone else will be doing it. So the time axis has become a very, very important one. And then we made a ranking and we started looking for the ideal partners in the different fields. This thing we called, with a lot of love, we called it La Sabana, which is like a bed sheet, because this was about how big this thing was. It was all the criteria that we felt were important for the decision making in what kind of partnership we should enter. And on the vertical axis, you have the names of the organizations that then we started to identify as possible partners. This thing was huge. We had a couple of people in our organization doing nothing else but finding the ideal partner for our growth plans that we had for Latin America. And the results that I can proudly present now in year 2 of this initiative is in all 3 areas really, really stunning. On the funding side, 2 of our top 5 business partners and customers in the whole of Latin America are a result of that search initiative that we started 2.5 years ago. On the know-how side, it's very much the same, and on the branding side, we have also advanced a lot. I would like to show you a couple of examples of what we do with those partners together. This project is by far the largest project which we have at the moment with South African Brewery. Big issue it was when we selected the South African Brewery with its social footprint as a partner for FUNDES, but at the end we decided, well, this morning I was in a brewery actually, so there is nothing wrong with beer as long as you don't take too much. Which reminds me of last night. So this project includes 25,000 micro and small businesses in 6 countries of Latin America. We strengthen those mom and pop shops with our customer, Submiller. This starts at the outside, the physical aspect of the shop. Then we go inside, we change the layout, then we do merchandising, then we teach a lot. And if somebody still then believes that they need additional capital to grow, then we find a capital partner. We don't do it ourselves anymore, another partnership. Then we bring in specialists in microcredits, and the results are really astonishing. We have objectives which we must reach with our customers. If Submiller doesn't sell 10% more of its products through the intervened shops, they stop the project. Whilst we have our objectives and we look at things like domestic violence, like alcoholism, like how many kids go to school before, how many kids go to school after the project. But we also look, obviously, at things like sales costs, gross margin, expenditures, and net margin. Very, very important for us. Half-jokingly, we always said financial objectives, social objectives, and environmental objectives are equally important, especially the economic ones. Because who's going to pay for the other 2 if you don't find how to make ends meet on the financial side? Another project, the first one was Downstream in distribution. This one is Upstream in procurement. We work a lot with steel companies that need scrap metal to produce steel. So with this one in Ecuador, with Gerdau, which is a Brazilian company, we work in 6 countries with scrap metal collectors, and we teach them how to become better scrap metals collectors. We give them instruments, we give them gloves, we give them those triciclos, bicycles with 3 wheels. To do their job better, we teach them at what time and how separated those scrap metals have to reach the ovens, have to reach, in this case, Adelka or Gerdau. These projects really work like clockworks, and we generate heaps of value for both, for our customers, which are the large corporations, and for our beneficiaries, which are the mom and pop shops. We make profit nowadays. We are proud of it. We don't pay any dividends at all, and we don't like it when they call us a social enterprise, because social enterprise means the impact is more important than quality. For us, quality is very, very important when we don't allow that kind of an idea that we are generating impact and therefore it's good. We are generating results at top quality, and unfortunately the term social enterprise still has that connotation that quality and results are not all that important. These are the 2 success stories that I wanted to share with you, and now I come to my last one, which are the learnings that we had in this whole cooperation and partnership exercise in the last 3 years. Really, really important. The more you talk to partners and to cooperation organizations, the more the risk exists that they pull you slightly off your own mission towards what they think is important. I am the protector of Fundes, and I will not allow that our organization moves an inch away from what we once decided was our mission. Fads come along like bottom of the pyramid, like inclusive business, like shared value. The last one is embeddedness. We work closely with the organizations that come with those ideas, but we don't really get on their train because they will disappear as they came, and if you're too close to them, you might disappear with them. So stay very true to your own mission and use whatever help and terms or idea that comes along with it. For us, it was never a question if we wanted to enter into these partnerships. We must have 120 now. For us, it was only a question with whom and how fast. Good partnerships, really, this is serious. Good partnerships are top-driven. No one else but the executive committee in Costa Rica, in our case, takes decision on partnerships, and we want our partners to do the same, eye to eye, and top-driven, and hopefully long-term. A lot of the problems that we have nowadays come, as we all know, from quarterly reports and the weight that these quarterly reports unfortunately still have. Only a 3 to 5 year goal can make sure that you think along sustainable solutions for your organization. Interdependency has increased, as I said. We give now things to our partners and we get things from our partners which ask for total and absolute trust. Things that we would have never given away a while ago, and now it becomes almost the standard that you share those things like data, for instance, and infrastructure and IT tools and apps with others. We don't want to develop apps. We want to use and maybe improve existing apps, but that again means that there must be full trust. I mentioned this one before. Aiming at a little bit less bad is really not good enough, because in the new industries, the winner would normally take it all. So either you win it or look for other things to do. I put Fundes in this line in sort of fade letters because it's not just for us. Whatever comes from private capital, if you are really able to hit the button in the private business, which makes the private business move, the sky becomes the limit. Our partners were often government agencies or development agencies, and I really mean this with a lot of respect. We appreciate and are very, very grateful for all the help that we still get from government organizations. But they change their ideas and their models and the way that we go about it, or the people, so often that we decided that we want to have our main weight on private business money, and that button obviously always has a dollar sign somewhere on it, but we must make sure that the environmental and social issues, which are equally important to us, are also on that button. But if you press that button in the private business, the sky is the limit. Don't forget, the business of business is business. But we want to make sure that we do that business in a more meaningful and in a more responsible manner. But it's still business. We always start with early adopters, the ones that sort of think alike and want to do similar things as we do. And then we improve, and then we replicate either in the same country or we take the idea to another country. And then what has been mentioned just in the last breakout session here, scale, 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 scale. The Submiller project started with 300 mom-and-pop shops in El Salvador, and we are now with 25,000, and we are now negotiating 200,000, which is still a drop on a hot stone. Mexico has 900,000 mom-and-pop shops, and for the whole of Latin America, we want to go to 200,000 in the next 2 years. Define indicator, measure, and then communicate. It is true, what is not being measured is normally not being done. So we are very, very eager with the idea of measuring what we do and how we do it, and measure our results, and then communicate. Which reminds me of a commercial I saw, or a poster, where British Airways says breakfast in London and lunch in Miami. And somebody wrote by hand underneath, and your luggage in Hong Kong. So do not communicate before your house is in order. Sorry to the British people, but I felt it was funny. Communicate once the house is in order, but then communicate in a big way. Not all the goals are shared. Some are complementary, and some are not. None of our customers really cares about domestic violence or about alcoholism or about how many kids go to school. We do. For us, it's part of progress. For us, poverty, the opposite of poverty for us is not wealth. For us, the opposite of poverty is justice. So we want to sort of move or try to help Latin America move in a direction where there is more justice. The need for standardization and best practice was mentioned a number of times. It's not good that everybody that is in this industry where we are sort of defines what should be measured and how it should be measured and what's good and what's not good. It would really, really help if we could sit together and define those standards and best practices, and then go back and start giving each other headaches again in the market. Why not? But there are things that are good for everybody if they're defined. And my last one, and really the most important one, it's still a people's business. I have spent hours and hours and miles in the plane to look people in the eye, especially now when it becomes so important that you can trust your partners. And so, as it was said once, a fax cannot replace a handshake or something along the lines. I really like to sit down with people and get a feeling whether they believe and think the same way and tick the same way that we do, and only then are we in for a common time. And joint success is a lot more fun. And we celebrate a lot in Funda. If we really know anything in Latin America, it's how to celebrate, even if they are not very big successes, but we celebrate them anyway. Thanks very much for your attention.